I also was friend to Dr. Betty Shabazz. And she told me stories when she was in the nursing department at Medgar Evers College here in New York. I had, we had done a Black History program. This was 1984, because this is when Jesse Jackson was running for president. And I remember that in February of that month, Minister Louis Farrakhan wrote an article for Essence magazine talking about Jesse Jackson's candidacy for president. And I remember we invited Betty Shabazz to come speak to our community in the Bronx. And she came and she spoke. And I did a little poem that was on the front of the agenda for the evening. And I remember, I escorted her into the room where the other folk were there. And I went out to get things ready, brought the community in and all the other things, because that was a crowded night that night. And later on, they told me, they say, Dr. Shabazz wasn't happy with your poem, because in the poem, I had said that Malcolm and Martin had never had the chance to come together to work together, but their apostles did. And I was talking about that Louis Farrakhan had offered security to Jesse Jackson back in '84 when he was being threatened. And I was talking about how they were coming together. And I was talking as if, Minister Farrakhan and Malcolm could not come together as a team, but their apostles, their disciples, their students, Minister Farrakhan and Jesse Jackson to Dr. King and Minister Farrakhan to Malcolm, were now coming together to work together for the betterment of our people. And I found out that she didn't like that poem. That's what they told me. And Brother Hawthorne, I couldn't sleep that night.
I bet.
Oh, man, I said, I have offended Malcolm's wife? Man, I was hurt. I was so hurt. Man, my heart hurt to think that I would have done something like that. And I didn't quite understand why. They hadn't explained it to me. And so the next day, bright and early, first thing, I'm calling her up in Medgar Evers. And I thank her for coming to, speak to our community, and that it really had an impact. And that, but I said also, Dr. Shabazz, I just want to apologize to you. I am so sorry. I said, I couldn't get to sleep last night thinking that I had hurt you, in any way had offended you. I'm the one that wrote that poem. And I am the one that spoke about, Minister Farrakhan and Malcolm and Louis Farrakhan and Jesse Jackson. And she said, brother, don't worry about that. She said, it didn't really bother me. See, they exaggerated a little bit in the thing. She said, no, it didn't bother me. She said, look, I was in there. I know what happened. I know how it happened. She said, I really like your spirit. I like where you're coming from. And I really appreciate how you feel towards my husband and what you're trying to do. She said, call me sometime. Come down. We'll talk. And so I took opportunity. First thing I could do, the first free day I had, I called and we arranged, and I went down to Medgar because I had gone to Medgar a lot to do presentations. So I went to her and she began to tell me stories. She told me some very serious stories about what was going on in the Nation of Islam at that time and how it was being infiltrated and various things that happened and who the players were, who was guilty of commission and who's guilty of omission. Because you got to understand those two things, because someone who is guilty of omission could be as guilty as if you did it yourself. And so the way I look at it in working and understanding Zach Kondo's work, doing my own investigation, understanding Peter Bailey's work, and understanding all of the factors that went in to the assassination of Malcolm X, there are people who could have saved Malcolm's life. There are people who could have spoke up and saved his life, but they didn't. I'm not saying that they caused it, but I'm saying that in their lack of speaking on it, they opened the door, because Malcolm was alone. He was out there on his own with no one around. And the very people who were supposed to guard him were arrested days before February 21st.
Sure.
So we know it was a setup. We know that Malcolm and Dr. King, with due respect to both individuals, much respect, but Malcolm was much more on target than Dr. King. Because before you get civil rights, you got to go for the human rights. And Malcolm was about to bring the United States before the United Nations in charge of genocide of the African American community and demanding human rights. Because here's the key. The fact that we need a voting